Good evening. President Mubarak says if he steps down, Egypt will descend into chaos. But could anything be more chaotic than what's been happening in Cairo all day? Journalists hunted down and beaten. Egypt's own people attacked by government thugs. The videos I'm about to show you may be difficult to watch, but we must watch them. The first shows an Egyptian police van mowing down several pedestrians without stopping. And we have a second deeply disturbing video. We don't know precisely where it was shot or precisely when, but it's consistent with other recent scenes in central Cairo. It begins with demonstrators throwing rocks towards some armoured vehicles. And a siren can be heard as a fire truck approaches rapidly from the right. As the crowd scatters, a man is run over by the same fire truck, which doesn't appear to slow down. I want to go straight to Anderson Cooper and his undisclosed location in Cairo. Anderson, you've been attacked again today while in a car. It's getting ridiculously dangerous for journalists. It's outrageous what's happening there. Clearly a deliberate attempt by the government to stop you guys out there reporting the truth. Talk me through your day and how bad it's been.
Well, I can't honestly tell you many details of my day just because I can't give away any locations. But you know, the incident was a brief one. It was an unpleasant one. We were in a vehicle. We had to go down a certain road that was blocked by pro-Mubarak demonstrators, and they set upon our car. Unfortunately, the driver of the vehicle I was in slowed down somewhat, unfamiliar with trying to get through these kind of roadblocks, and somebody, I didn't see who it was, threw a rock through my window, shattering the window. You know, I got some minor cuts and really nothing, but we were all okay. We, you know, immediately started screaming to the driver, go, 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 and we were able to get out of there. The car was pretty badly damaged, but again, that was a minor incident compared to what has happened to numerous journalists today, being pulled out of vehicles, being taken away, being interrogated, being beaten. We've heard of journalists being stabbed. Without a doubt, this is an orchestrated effort to stop the world from seeing what is happening in and around Liberation Square. And, you know, over the last 10 days, we have seen, I should say in the first, you know, over the last 4 or 5 days since Saturday and Sunday and Monday and Tuesday, we saw the best of Egypt. We saw a multicultural, multi-dimensional group of protesters, group of people, Egyptians coming forward, voicing their opinions, talking about democracy and freedom. And what we have seen in the last 2 days is the worst in Egypt. We have seen thugs on the streets systematically attacking people, descending upon peaceful protesters, and now systematically trying to find and beat up foreigners and Westerners and other people from other Arab nations who are reporting, simply trying to tell the truth of what is happening here.
Anderson, you've covered a number of dangerous assignments. Have you ever known one where so many of the media have been badly beaten, stabbed, in one case kidnapped and threatened with beheading? Have you ever known the collective media come under such an attack?
In such a large-scale, systematic way, no. I've been at the fall of President Mobutu in Zaire, that's now Congo, when, you know, soldiers who hadn't been paid were running riot and beating up reporters or grabbing cameras. This is far more orchestrated. We had the Vice President of Egypt today on the television saying that satellite channels, news channels, were part of some sort of foreign conspiracy against the Egyptian people. I can tell you that sent a chill through, certainly through my heart, and I'm sure through many reporters here on the ground who are simply trying to do their job, trying to talk to pro-Mubarak demonstrators as well as anti-Mubarak demonstrators, trying to broadcast the truth. That sent a message to thugs on the streets that reporters are legitimate targets and that they are suspicious and part of a plot. And it is, I mean, that is throwing a match on very, very dry wood here.
Yeah, I thought it was an incredibly insensitive and frankly outrageous thing to have said. And clearly part of the conspiracy that's going on there to stop the media telling the truth and to stop the protests. Anderson, I want you to listen to a conversation I had just now with New York Times columnist Nick Kristof, and then come back to you afterwards.
Well, a whole series of foreign journalists have been attacked, arrested, beaten up Two of my colleagues at the New York Times were arrested. A Washington Post reporter was arrested. You had thugs attack the Reuters office. Brian Hartman from ABC was threatened with beheading. Greg Palkot from Fox was hospitalized after a beating. You had a Greek reporter who was stabbed with a screwdriver. Anderson Cooper was beaten up. Christian Amanpour and Anderson both had their cars attacked. And it just goes on and on and on. As far as we can tell, there's really been a deliberate effort by the government to send out the word to target journalists. And I guess I have a terrible feeling in the pit of my stomach that means there may be something that they don't want us to cover coming up.
Yeah, I mean, the word that we're getting back here is that tomorrow may be a big, big day for the protests, and it may well be that what's going on here is a preemptive strike to prevent the media from covering what may be the retaliation from Mubarak's side.
Yeah, I mean, the presence of the media, effectively, we raise the costs of repression. By having cameras around, by having journalists around, we make it harder to kill people, to arrest them, to crush a peaceful democracy movement. And so it is a very, eerie feeling that it's open season right now on reporters. And, I mean, at the end of the day, as foreign reporters, we have foreign passports. We can leave, we can go home, and we have a certain amount of protection because of our nationality and our status. But those people at Tahrir Square, they have none of those protections. They're taking all of the risks, and, I worry deeply about them.
Nick, we've seen some horrifying images emerging today. One in particular I saw of what looked like a police van deliberately running people over in the street. What kind of activities are now going on against these protesters by pro-Mubarak forces tonight, from what you can gather?
Well, it's a continuation of what we saw very abruptly, really in the early morning hours Wednesday. You had the government send out police, members of the ruling party, and a lot of frankly, thugs who are all around the town. They're trying to block people from entering Tahrir Square. They're going after human rights monitors, journalists. When I arrived at Tahrir Square this morning, the kind of a standard entrance, the Qasr O'Neill Bridge, one of the major bridges over the Nile River, there were, I was about to get out of my taxi, and then I realized there were a whole line of these thugs with clubs with nails embedded in them. I mean, they look like Central Casting's notion of gangsters, and I decided that was maybe not the opportune place to get out of the cab. So I tried various other routes to get into Tahrir Square. At 2, I was turned back by soldiers, but finally I was able to find a way in. And later, when I left, I had to have help, of course, and 3 people in Tahrir, 3 local people, volunteered their services to lead me out by secret passages. And I just tremendously admire their courage and willingness to help us.
Nick, what was your reaction to Mubarak's interview with Christian Amanpour? Because he was trying to make out that although President Obama has asked him to go now, that will descend the country into chaos. I mean, it seems a pretty ironic statement given what we're witnessing today, which seems chaotic, to put it mildly.
Yeah, I mean, for 30 years, Mubarak's systematic policy has been to prevent any kind of a secular, reasonable opposition so that he can say, if it's not for me, then we're going to have chaos in Egypt. And at times, American officials have kind of believed that. But in the last few days, I think that has lost all credibility because we had a peaceful, secular, largely secular democracy movement that was actually quite well organized and certainly very peaceful. And then Cairo has descended in chaos in the last couple of days because the president has sent his thugs to try to crush that movement.
It's 4 a.m. on Friday morning in Cairo. I wish I could show you live pictures from Tahrir Square, but there are no cameras left there to record what's going on. It remains a sinister mystery. Anderson, we just heard from Nick there. He is feeling pretty ominous about why the media have been so brutally treated today. He thinks and fears, as I'm sure many journalists do, that this is because something very unpleasant may be about to happen. What's your thoughts on this?
Well, it's hard to predict, what any next few hours will hold. But, what we have seen already is ominous enough and is maybe a precursor of what we're going to see ahead. I don't know. I fear, I think, Nick makes incredibly important points that, let's not have the story, even though unfortunately now journalists have become part of the story because of this systematic campaign to target them. Let's never forget that the people in that square, in Liberation Square, as Nick said, do not have the capabilities and the possibility of getting on an airplane if one is able to actually even get to the airport. They believe they are fighting for life and death, and it's important to remember that as we watch what happens over the next several hours.
Anderson, thank you very much for this report. Please stay safe there. We know it's incredibly dangerous. You're doing an extraordinary job for us. We appreciate it. Thank you. Earlier today, Egyptian Vice President Omar Suleiman flatly denied that the government had any connection with the violent pro-Mubarak actions in Tahrir Square. A short time ago, I spoke with Senator Bob Casey, chairman of the subcommittee that deals with Egypt. Here's what he told me about the leadership. You met with Vice President Omar Suleiman last July. What were your recollections of meeting, and what kind of guy is he?
Well, he's very capable, very bright, a lot of experience in intelligence matters and in matters that are more military and security in nature. So he's a very capable person. I don't think he's the kind of person who could be the leader of this transition. I think probably the best thing that could happen here, and there's no rule book or guidebook for this, but if there's representation by the military, representation by civilian authorities, and especially representation by the pro-democracy forces who have been working so hard to bring about this change. If you have a coalition of folks that come together and begin this process right now, and of course President Mubarak has to get out of the way and allow this process to take place so they can transition.
Omar Suleiman said earlier today that he firmly blames the media, including Western media, for inflaming the rioting that we've seen in Egypt. It seemed a pretty ridiculous statement to me. What was your take on that?
Well, I think it's not just a misreading of what happened on the ground, but I think it indicates sometimes what happens to leaders when they're not observing what is plainly evident. This was a movement that came from the hearts of real people in Egypt who have been suffering for so long without those basic rights. The world has changed, and we have to be, I think, here in the United States, both the administration and the Congress, have to continue to be constructive. I think the president has by pushing, but not trying to dictate to the Egyptian people.
I want to bring in my colleague, John King, now. John, there's a report in tonight's New York Times that the White House has a new plan to encourage President Mubarak to cede power immediately to Vice President Omar Suleiman. Is this actually new, or has this been the sort of plan below ground that's been going on all the time?
No offense to the two fine reporters from the New York Times that wrote that report, Piers, and they do have some new information in there, but the basic thrust of it is something we have been reporting since Tuesday afternoon. I just went back to look at the transcripts to make sure that we're all tired. We've been working long hours, that I wasn't losing my mind. But I had this conversation with Anderson on his program Tuesday night, that the administration, and Senator Casey in your interview with him just made a very important point. They can't dictate, of course. This is a decision for the people of Egypt to make. But the administration, as we've reported Tuesday night, is in every conversation, and Vice President Biden had a conversation with Vice President Suleiman just today, suggesting President Mubarak has to go very quickly, as soon as possible. You would have a transitional government come into play. It is the administration's hope that Vice President Suleiman would lead that government, that he would have the blessing.